I'm Steve Gieder, your host with the most weed from coast to coast. And I'm here today with a very special guest, Halle Pennington with the Humboldt Seed Company. How are you today, Halle?
I'm doing great. Thank you guys for having me. I'm super excited to catch up and talk some Cannabis and all the things.
It's been a little while. I haven't been out to as many events or haven't gotten a chance to run into you on the weed scene out there. You know, around the country, you know, we know each other here. That's how it always
goes around here. I always joke with my Humboldt buddies because I'm like, you know, realistically, we only live an hour or so away from each other. Why is it that I'm always hanging out with you in Spain or wherever it is? But it's just kind of how it works up here. Everyone's on their own thing.
It is. I mean, a lot of people live here or moved here to kind of be away from the rest of other people in the world.
Yeah.
And live out in the hills and operate in a rural way. And so definitely. It is strange that you often see people locally that you far away that you never see around town.
Right. I know. It is funny. It's always interesting having those like super out of town events being kind of a Humboldt reunion for us, but that's why we need the local events too. So
that's a fact, right?
Drags us all off the hill.
It totally does. And it's always been a way, you know, usually you would see people like at farmers market or at the, like you're shopping at stores, you know, that a lot of times that's where you would like run into people when you're like grabbing resources.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's always like the rush, all right, it's good to see you, but like low key, leave me the fuck alone.
Right. For sure. No, it's, you know, living out in Humboldt in Northern California, it's a way of life, you know, and it's definitely at the root of a lot of this cannabis culture. And, you know, I've lived here for 25 years and I've seen you here that long here in this community or so. And just like, this is like home to us, you know, it is unique and it's always a special place, but when you leave and then, you know, you recognize how special of a place it is.
That's very true. Honestly, it took me like traveling and exploring the world a little bit more to understand how unique Humboldt is and like the community culture we have here. It's something really, really special. And, you know, I get glimpses of it in other places, but a lot of the time I just feel like it's kind of lacking that vibe altogether. And I mean, even as I had just said, we're not always all trying to be buddy-buddy and hang out all the time. It's just like the way that you know, your neighbors got you covered if something really bad goes down. Like,
right.
We've kind of developed that mentality over so many years of having to fend for ourselves around here that people actually do still like rely on their neighbors and rely on their friends, and that's not something you see every day in like the like modern, you know, survival of the fittest mentality and that like go-getter like rat race environment that is so prevalent in the United States. So Humboldt County is kind of just like an incredibly unique place where, you know, people have different morals. I feel like
it's true. There's a different sense of community here too.
Yeah.
In that way where people are looking out for each other. And there's just a different sense of it. You know, you see that same thing in small communities, big communities in different places, but Humboldt's a unique way. There's a big outlaw aspect also to the pieces of looking out for each other that are also intertwined with like the back hills ways of looking out for each other. Like when your well goes dry or there's certain needs that you have out in the hills, or there's certain things that you're looking at like, when I was coming home today, I saw 6 cop cars down the end of the road. Right. You know, that kind of information is stuff that's always shared on the back roads or
I mean, I just even like honestly, you know, community integrity is something that gets taken into the hands of individuals like way more commonly around here, because you know, you hear the stories of like riffraff coming to town or like men that do horrible things to women hanging around. And at least in my experience, like particularly in the area I grew up, they don't last very long. We had one problematic guy, and the last time he tried to come around, his tires got slashed within 10 minutes.
Right. No, there's lots of stories about people that are causing problems or don't belong or and kind of find their way out.
Yeah.
You know, the community pushes them out in different ways. And people are looking out for each other. There's sometimes where they're in the outlaw community or in the backwoods where the police might take, days or weeks to get there. You have to kind of handle things. So community step up together in that way too. And I think that's also something unique about our community here. Not that there aren't communities like that, but where we are, so like a few things came together to create this, special place. Aside from the natural beauty that made this place what it is and attracted so many, then there's the way the people are here as well. Yeah, and that's why we do events here, really, and and grow our families here and have our businesses here, is because this is home. We love it, and it's a great place to be.
Yeah.
But when you're traveling around, that's some interesting stuff. You're in Spain or something like you just mentioned, and I know there was Spannabis happened recently, and people were over there for 1, 2, or 3 weeks or a whole month. People took some long trips over there and stuff, but saw lots of strong contingency from the Humboldt community, and it's interesting seeing how many leaders there are in our community, in the whole bigger picture of the cannabis culture and community around the world. Humboldt County has a strong representation of leaders, and you being one of them, representing what's happening here to the masses. And that's that's interesting to me. And so I'd love to hear more about what happened for you in Spain and what you see from that synergy with Humboldt and Spain. Like what's happening there?
I mean, I think personally there's like kind of a natural calling just from people who have spent a long time in the Humboldt County industry to go partake in the Spain industry. It really like has a lot of aspects that remind me so much of the 215 days, and it's created a really, really unique industry because of that. It's almost like how they used to have, of course, the 215 only dispensaries and things like that. There they have the membership only clubs that you can join, and it's kind of created this booming but slightly underground market where there's just all these people who are immensely passionate about cannabis, but they have so much diversity still in what they're interested in cultivating, what they're smoking, and it really just brings you back to like the good old days where the like everyday stoner is able to fully partake in the industry and like still cultivate their own stuff. And it just has that exciting energy about it. It's not that isn't still here in California. It's definitely still an exciting place to be in. I wake up every day immensely grateful to be able to do what I love, but some of that like some of that luster that comes with everyone just being able to really just pursue their passion of it, and they're not sticking to necessarily like these hype patterns that we see with strains. It's right. Everyone has their unique interests in what they're smoking, and they're buying all sorts of different seeds, and a lot of the time we do get a lot of respect from locals over there that know that Humboldt was kind of an integral part of paving the pathway for what cannabis has become now. And a lot of unique genetics have come from here. A lot of unique growing practices have come from here. And so I do think that there is like so much respect for the culture that Humboldt County brings. And as far as I've seen, everyone from this area that we hang out with over there is welcome with open arms. We had Johnny from Huckleberry Hills and Rose come out this year, which is really fun. And like so many people were coming up to the booth just asking for them. They're like, I've been waiting to meet this guy forever. And it's really amazing to see like the story and the history of what we do here has carried that far.
Well, yeah, like the history and like of the genetics. People are excited in other places. More so in bigger groups, like everyone loves what we do here to a degree, and a lot of the essence of like the culture in Humboldt has moved around, and people are in different places as leaders helping like make things happen. And when I go out to other events too, like that's the thing that keeps me coming back, is really the excitement around it. you know, and the discovery that comes along with this like creative culture. That's, to me, that's what the culture is all about, is like creativity. It's always been like this. I've been trying to figure out what to call the cannabis community, because it's like there's a cannabis community, but then there's the whole culture around the arts and the music, you know, and in Europe, there's a long history of the arts and the impact in the culture there. So it's really cool to see this, like, this stuff happening in a way, and people so excited, you know, from what I can see in Spain and other places around the genetics and the home grow culture, and people really caring about what they're creating.
Yeah, it's a special thing, and it's, you know, it's an honor to be able to be a part of it. It's, you know, it's not only Barcelona or Spain as a whole. We have like Berlin now taking off with a significant increase in interest, and you know, they're doing the big Mary Jane event again this year, and you know, that's another one I'm really looking forward to, because it just blows my mind, like thinking of, you know, the seeds that like we used to keep so hidden and coveted, and it was like, you know, it was my dad's secret claim to fame essentially for so many years, and then being able to go to a country that I've always dreamed of visiting and having them come up and be like, I absolutely loved your Blueberry Muffin. That strain changed my life. Right. And to me, it's just like, it almost doesn't feel real half the time.
I'm sure. I'm sure. It's interesting. Yeah. Like some of the genetics mean so much to people from so far away. So to actually show up and make that direct connection can mean the world to people, but also the energy that you get back from producing these genetics or finding one in the field, or there's so many different ways that genetics become popular. And when it happens because of how good the plant is, or because of the love people have around the plant versus like, you know, good marketing or good branding, it always seems to last a lot longer and have a more meaningful impact to communities and whatnot. And that Humboldt Seed Company has been putting out seeds for how long now?
I mean, officially, gosh, I don't even know what to say to that.
Right.
My dad went and he got the business license name in 2001. And at the time he did just tell the county, he was like, I do vegetables and I breed peppers and all sorts of stuff. Of course. Which he has always kind of
done those too,
explored other things for fun, but you know, it was like 1999, I think, kind of around when he had realized my mom was pregnant, and they were both still really young, and he was like, you know, he had been working for the local fisheries department for a while and had been working with the Undam the Klamath movement things, but that wasn't necessarily gonna pay a family of three's bills. So he was like, I gotta step up my grow, I gotta step up my breeding efforts, because from what I understand at the time, he was getting some seeds from some friends and they were like, oh, this is bomb, grow it out, and it would be like a totally different thing than he expected. There's like 10 different phenos, and when you're only growing like, you know, 50 to 100 plants per little gorilla, that's a lot of space to give up. So definitely, that kind of switched him into the trajectory of breeding. And you know, for a while it was pretty low key. It started with like the neighbors, and then it was the neighbors and their friends, and it got to the point where my stepmom at the time was like, you know, back then we were picking them out of the buds by hand, and so his homies would show up, they'd bring him a 6-pack of beers, and they'd be like, all right, let's get down to business, let's get these seeds. And he wasn't even really charging most of the time, and she was like, this is too much, like, you're getting a beer gut and we could really use some extra money. She's like, I think you really need to start charging for these things. Right. And so, you know, one thing led to another. We got our first seed banks. We were selling to, I think one of our first dispensaries ever was HPRC. So we got in there right away. They had our first ever little package, which was just a silly little business card. We'd like shrink wrap it on with the vial in there. That's awesome. It was a good time. I was the first ever packaging employee, and I don't even want to say how old I was, but I've been around for a minute.
If you had to make a guess, have you ever thought of like how many seeds you've put into packs, maybe? If you just had to make this a random
I have no
guess.
idea. Yeah, I don't even know. The amount of seeds that I've run through my hands.
Tens of millions.
Yeah.
Even more than
I
that.
don't necessarily want to say that.
Billions of seeds.
Billions and
10 billion
billions.
seeds. Yeah.
No, a lot of seeds.
Yeah. I'm just nice.
Let's say it's safe to say a whole lot of seeds, a whole lot of clones.
Right.
You know, a whole lot of plants. It's
definitely. I know. I've just watched some different pheno hunts that you've all done in recent times with like just massive amounts of plants in multiple farms. You know, and it's really awesome to see that and to like, I don't know. I've known your dad from very soon after I opened my store here, like 25 years ago in town. I met him. Maybe a couple years later or something, but it's been like 23 or something years, you know, and so it seems to be, you know, somewhere around the time, you know, before the seeds were like a thing. It was like, you know, like you're saying, somewhere around that time, I think I met your dad, and have just watched this thing grow in the different directions. But I've always been saying how like we're at the baby steps, we're at this like micro level of what our community's going to do, you know, and now it's like 20 some years later and there's still a lot more work to be done, but we're getting across the globe, and that's amazing. And I'm curious, like
they're toddler steps now.
Yeah, we're like toddler steps for sure. There's still way further to go, but I'm curious as like a second generation kind of business, you know, woman, you know, what kind of influence you feel that you have now or have had in some of like your like recent projects or things that are going forward? Because I know that things are always woven in there when someone's, you know, involved, but you're heavily involved in a lot of different ways. I don't really know. I just see and I listen to a lot of what you're saying on different things like on the internet and stuff like this, whatever that I've seen. But I'm curious. What kind of influence would you say you've had in some of this, in this path forward?
You know, mostly I have to say, like, I have mostly been learning on my journey.
Yeah.
And, you know, that I feel is never going to be able to end. I feel like when it comes to, like, my company specifically, I guess I provide a unique perspective just because I am like quite a lot younger than, you know, my dad and his partner Ben, who also does some breeding.
Yeah.
And so I try to, you know, at least marketing wise and sometimes in the strains we're putting out, I try to kind of push us in new directions. I've been really advocating for breeding a washer only program. You know, I just know that there's the demand for that. And so things like that, I feel like, are something that I can provide to the table from a unique perspective. But, you know, for the most part, like, my biggest thing is pheno-hunting. And it's not just the action of finding the plant in the field and being like, oh, this is a keeper. It's like everything that comes after the pheno-hunting that I'm just in love with. And the process of really nailing down, like, what you want that strain to end up as, and you know, are there things you want to change even from that initial winner that you found in the field, or do you want that exact representation, copy and paste in that like stabilized seed line? And so taking a plant down that journey is so fun. And you know, there's a lot of curveballs that get thrown at you these days too, because I'm not one to just completely shy away from trying some of the new hype genetics. I think I'm a little bit more interested in that than my dad would be, because, you know, he'd rather cross two of his own strains any day and be able to know what he's about to get out of it. But for me, it's kind of fun to just be able to see some of the things that can emerge from these like super hyped up clone lines, because a lot of them are this times this times this times this times this for generations, and there hasn't ever been like a serious movement to stabilize the genetic of that. And so you're turning it into a seed cross and you're getting like little glimpses of every bit and piece of what's in there. And that like levels the pheno-hunt up even more at that point. And so there's endless opportunity. And, you know, I don't think I'll ever quite get sick of it. Everyone's always like, how many plants have you sniffed by now? And
Right.
like, don't you think you've seen it all? And still to this day, I mean, I have to give Mean Gene some props right now, actually, because I had my jaw dropped the other day. He like busted out a little head stash bag and he was like, this is some of the very last of it. It's not on its best leg of the journey. And it really wasn't. And he popped it open and he was like, this is my limes. And I love this one. I smelled it. Both me and my dad were just in awe because, first of all, we both love lime.
Mm-hmm.
But it was spot on, and the flavor was all there too when I smoked it.
Wow.
And so, you know, there's still these special terp profiles that
Definitely.
they still get me every time.
Definitely.
I know they're out there, and I'll never stop hunting.
Right on. And a lot of this stuff, there's so many crosses. Like, if you start thinking about what the parent genetics are and whatnot, you know, when these things are unstable many generations down the road, you can just pop some flavors and some terp profiles from these parent genetics, you know, a few great parent genetics, you know, there's so much in there that, and then people just started naming things crazy and more in modern years than they used to, you know.
Right.
So you almost don't know what you're getting from a name, so the chances of like crossing something back on top of something else by accident, that's going to happen more frequently.
That's true as well.
You know, so there's these expressions that come out. I love it too, but I don't get a chance to be around as many plants, you know, and I always love that part of my cannabis experience was just like being with the plants. And could you tell me a little bit about what you have going on the farm this year that sticks out to you? I know you were mentioning you're out at the farm a bunch this time of year. And
this time of year is a fun one for us because it's, you know, it's seed season. So we have all of our farm friends that come in, and one of my favorite things is they all come in and they bring us some samples of whatever they grew from the year before. And then they end up getting their new seeds. So we're dealing with that a few days of the week, and then we go straight out to the farm, and it's, you know, it's planting time. So serious business. Really just getting everything prepped and ready. Thankfully, we have an amazing crew out there this year. Actually have managed to retain our entire crew throughout the full season, which is always a big relief because everyone's pretty on it, knows what needs to happen. And you know,
great.
Breeding is such a different thing that it's like, it's never the expectation that somebody can just kind of step in and pick up where we left off and things.
Right.
It's something that even like somebody who's been growing for years and years is going to need some specialized training on. So
I'm sure,
you know, having those guys out there has really just made the farm a breeze this year. And I know we're going to be making a lot of seeds.
Right on. How much, I was always curious, like, just roughly about how much of the farm out there goes to like seed production versus
I would say
other projects and maybe what some of those other things are.
I mean,
like how much
out of
it's
our
actually seed
permit,
production?
Almost 98% of our permit is seed production.
Okay, cool.
We do probably like 100, 150 full terms just
cool.
just for the fun of pheno-hunting, and so that we have some head stash to give out to our buddies or whatever it is. I mean, this last year, I'm going to be honest, don't tell Metric this, but we ended up just telling people we're just like, harvest what you can and take it home and try it.
Right.
Get it the fuck out of here.
Right.
We were like, we're done. We don't have room for it. Like, you know, flower has never been like our expertise. It's always been the seeds. So that's majority of our focus. But then again, we are pretty much like a full-fledged farm at this point. So we have like a significant cornfield. We have a massive garlic patch going right now.
Nice.
My dad does way too many peppers. I think we bottled up 320 jars of hot sauce this year from his pepper garden.
Oh my goodness.
So anything and anywhere that we can grow and plant, we're gonna grow and plant. Whatever it is. Like our options for fruit trees or berries, it's like getting out of hand. There's things I can't even name anymore. So, you know, we're cultivators at heart. Like, we love to grow our own food. I always tell this to home growers who are like trying for their first time. I'm like, you know, have you ever grown your own vegetable or even like your own basil,
Right.
just a little herb on your windowsill. And I'm like, like once you taste that, it always tastes a little bit better than like even something else your buddy grew, but it has that like that bond that you've almost created with this plant of like nurturing it and watching it grow and then getting to enjoy that. Like the tomatoes we grow on our farm, I've never tasted anything like it.
I always said, like, you know, people always tried to like label people growers or like, you know, people that grow weed a different thing. And being the guy at the grow shop forever, I was always trying to like put a good spin on that, or just like, and to me it seemed like, you know, growing weed was like the gateway to gardening. You know, it's like a lot of people that I would see would come in and they never grew anything before, but because herb had, you know, they had some love for the herb, they wanted to grow herb, or their friends were showing them how to do it, and they'd come into the shop wanting to grow herb, and then sure enough, a couple years later, they got all this extra soil and some extra nutrients, and they're buying some seeds from the shop. Or we would always give starts to people too.
Yeah.
And it truly is a way into people to learn to love plants. Sometimes people learn their first plant they grew was weed.
Yeah.
You know,
it's very true. I've also came across that quite a few times. It's the classic growing weed is the gateway into having an entire garden.
That's it.
Next thing you know, you have chickens.
Right. It is the gateway to gardening.
Yeah. I mean, one of the best forms of a gateway, I guess I could say. But
do you remember? I'm sure I interviewed you before and had the same question. But do you remember the first strain that you grew, or the first like time you you know, put that piece together? Like, this is this strain.
The first strain that like really left an impact on me, I have to say, was our Blueberry Muffin. And I was so young. I think I was like, I don't know, I was like 12 or 14. So I don't necessarily have been up in there like sniffing the plants, but it was it was like the talk of the town, but just on our trim scene specifically. But it was like every single person, I could hear it circulating all over the property. Have you smelled that one plant? Have you smelled that?
Right.
So I'm like, of course I have to go check it out. And, you know, sure enough, it did smell just like blueberries.
Yeah.
At the time, my dad hadn't actually taken cuttings off of it. So, you know, it was a re-veg prayer plant, and it survived. It worked out. And,
all right,
you know,
nice.
I think that the smell that our Blueberry Muffin strain has retained is very spot on to this day. But for me, like, I grew up pretty unaware that cannabis was cannabis until I was like 10 or something. I don't even really know when it actually hit me. Well, it was a drug talk in school, and I was like, oh, I like putting two and two together now. But up until then, my parents had they called it basil, so they referred to it as just like a garden herb. Yeah. And it was always just so casually around. Like, we had our little starts greenhouse where we started all the vegetables every year, and there was the 10 trays of basil over in the corner, and that was that. Yeah. And so, you know, I guess I never really thought about why people were smoking it, or why we had to trim it up. That just wasn't something that ever even crossed my mind until it did. And then I was like, oh wow, my whole life. But it also immediately kind of like posed the question of, okay, if this plant is supposedly so bad and it's illegal, and, you know, nobody's supposed to have it or smoke it or be growing it, I'm like, why have I never seen any example of that in my entire lifetime of being around this plant? Right. You know, and even as like a 10, 12-year-old, whatever I was already able to formulate to that extent. You were calling bullshit already. Like, something seems off here, you know.
I remember that same experience myself.
Yeah. And because I'd been around plenty of, you know, drunk idiots, to be honest. Exactly. Not saying my parents intentionally put me in that position, but it happens. Yeah, like, you go out to the local Old Town Market and you might run into a drunk idiot. You go to farmers market, and there might be some guy still drunk from the night before. Definitely. So it's like, as you know, as a small child, I was pretty instantly able to be like, I personally feel like that was an error in judgment. Why is this plant?
Understood.
Yeah.
I felt the same way.
Yeah. It's, you know, it's been nice, I guess, in my adult life to see the kind of the stigma around cannabis shift a bit. It's changing slowly but surely, but you know, I think that that's something that has really been encouraging for me, because it's always been so confusing, like why somebody would choose to put somebody on like a high dose pain medication over potentially exploring the option of them trying cannabis and one of its many forms. And so just even knowing like people actually have the opportunity to at least give a try to this medicine that could change their life and not be shamed or potentially jailed for it. Like, it makes so much sense, but it's just also like so heartwarming to know that people aren't having to fight that battle anymore.
True. No, it's different battles. It moves on, you know, it's like as this thing's evolved into an industry and it's business, but business as usual in certain aspects, right? There's all these other challenges that, you know, we have a dispensary and a distro here right next door, and dispensaries are shutting down in town, and we're opening up a dispensary. You know, so there's a lot going on in the California cannabis market, and while I had you in here for today, I just wanted to bring it up a little bit to see what your thoughts were. If you had some advice potentially for some of the businesses out here, because there's been a lot of wasted resources in people trying to transition from legacy to licensed. Yeah. Right. And some people have decided that wasn't what they wanted to do. Other people have had success going legal and doing it in a way that's profitable. But there's lots of challenges trying to have a dispensary and a distribution and all this in California. Just like all the other markets, as they evolve, it'll get tougher. Yeah. And, you know, it looks like we're avoiding this tax disaster just by the skin of our teeth here, potentially. We still have to get the rest of the suits to sign off down there at the state. But do you have any advice, or are there any things that you see that people are doing, right, that are successful that you would encourage other people to do to maintain, you know, market share, to stay in this thing?
I mean, the key to success in this industry, I can't say that there's like one route that is going to be a solution for everybody. You know, if it was that easy, that would be awesome. But unfortunately, that's not how business endeavors tend to work in any industry, let alone the cannabis industry.
Right. There's no magic phrase.
What I can say I have 100% seen become kind of a pattern is just like the approach of going like all in way too crazy and not actually taking the time to build your brand with integrity, to build a bond with customers, to set business practices that are going to retain existing customers is honestly one of the number one things. And it's like the saying, the song, it's the harder they come, the harder they go. That you see so frequently in this industry now. It's people coming in hot with huge loads of investment, thinking that they need the most baller dispensary, the most baller store, the most baller distro van, and the most baller greenhouses at their farm, whatever it may be. I just, you know, we're not necessarily at the level yet where we need to be like pulling out all the stops and, you know, trying to like flex on each other with the new baller setup you got over here. Especially like as the newer people in the industry, like I highly encourage people to focus more on their customer relations and their actual impact in the industry, and like doing work that is providing something unique. You know, I think
that all sounds, that's great advice.
That just as a whole is something I have to say. I think, you know, for people in Humboldt, it honestly has been like an extra hard transition because there was just so much history of being entirely in the hiding and keeping your brand completely to yourself. Like even for me at times, going into legalization when I was 18, I kind of was able to quickly be like, okay, shit, like we're talking about this now, we're doing it. But I can't imagine as somebody who spent 30, 40, 50 years of their life running and hiding from helicopters that they're just going to be able to sit there on their farm with a microphone and a camera in their face as the helicopter is flying by. Like, it's like a whole different world. And so, you know, that brings in just another level of things of like, oh, how do I take this thing that I've spent all my life putting effort into hiding and make it as public as humanly possible, and you know, build a brand with brand recognition. And that, you know, that's just a freaking challenge. I'm gonna be honest. I've been there. I know it's really tough, but at the end of the day, authenticity and like the way that you connect with your consumer is the number one thing that you can do for a brand. And especially knowing most of our Humboldt farmers have some amazing product, I think that's just kind of a shoe-in for them.
For sure. For sure. No, that's great advice. And I couldn't agree more with all that stuff. And I think people need good advice, and it's often people don't put it out there. So I always like to shine some light on that, because it's important to listen to people that have that experience, and you've got a ton of experience. And so it would make sense if I was trying to excel, I would be paying attention. So listen up out there.
It's been an interesting journey, to say the least. It's you know, lots of curveballs, and quite honestly, we still never really know what's coming next. So that's just the fun of the journey. Definitely.
I mean, we go to different markets and I see different things happening. And right now we're doing an event out in New York, and it's always been my goal to want to connect Humboldt to New York, in a sense, you know, to Philadelphia, to the East Coast. I grew up in Philly, and just the idea, I've been out here for 25 years. And then as Cannabis has been traveling back, you know, I first heard about Humboldt in Philly, you know, because somebody had some Humboldt County chronic at the Grateful Dead parking lot. And that's where I first heard about Humboldt, and it was like a bag of weed. And so it's always been my desire to take the Yes We Can community parade that we first did out here in Eureka and bring that thing to New York and bring it to Philadelphia. And so we have lots of friends all over the world and stuff. Our cannabis community is a community of creative people that have a place for each other, but they're all over the world. You know, it's always been that way, and it's always been cool to connect to your cannabis community in that way. Now we can talk about it on the internet, and we can put it on the Instagram, and we have businesses, legal businesses that can do this. And soon enough, we're going to see legal weed traveling across state lines. It's going to happen sometime in the future. Let's call it 5 years, or maybe 10, maybe 2, whatever it is, it's going to happen. And
it's already
you know, connecting those dots out there, having these competitions. The Head Stash Bowl in New York is what we're doing now. We got lots of growers that and makers that sent their samples in. We sent them off to a lab. They tested them. We removed the ones that failed. And that brings up another topic I want to chat about, which is like spray packs and this and what's going on in New York with that stuff and other places in the world. But in the competition that we have, I'm excited to get you the judging kit. It should be, we'll have it to you real soon here, any moment. It would have been nice to have it in my hands right now. But
I know, I would have brought it in. I forgot to check my mailbox before I headed over here. But if it's in there when I get home, I'm going to be annoyed at myself.
So we have that coming in, and there were some nice samples. There was some good stuff. It was exciting to connect with the community out there. And on June 5th, we're having a party out there in Manhattan and whatnot. But thanks for being one of our judges.
Yeah.
And if it was up to me, I couldn't think of a better person to be a judge of someone that has been around so many plants and has seen so many different genetics and appreciates the plant for what it's worth, you know, in that way. So yeah, thanks for doing that.
Yeah, I'm excited. I am always happy to join in when it comes to judging.
Do you think you ever smoked any spray packs?
I mean, accidentally.
You smoked some weed and you're like, what the hell was that?
I think I have, I'm sure. You know, at this point, I'm pretty picky as far as where I am willing to smoke flower from. I just got to do Mendo Cup recently, nice. And it was all sun grown, and that one was a great one because I was awesome. I will smoke everything on this table, and I am very confident that none of these growers are doing some crazy stuff.
Definitely.
But I mean, even on the California recreational market, there's so much that we're not testing for, like
100%.
realistically. So I mean, even that, it's just there's no guarantee unless you know your source. Like that's why I'm like, I don't fuck with just buying product from some random person. I either want to grow it myself, or I want to know that it was grown with care and integrity and not filled with like some gnarly chemicals. Because at that point, I'm like, that takes away the entire reason for why I'm trying to partake in this.
Well, I got a delicious Philly's blunt here. Philly blunts. It's
That's sick.
Some Blue Dream and s'mores.
Wow, I haven't seen that.
That's our local brand. We made that right here in the parking lot.
That is awesome.
And,
I love it.
If you want to smoke this thing, let's fire this thing up.
Yes.
This is all grown locally in greenhouse. It's all greenhouse weed.
So I'm a big Philly fan. I don't know if my dad's talked to you about this, but he's kind of from Philly as well. He was born in upstate New York, and then he moved to Philly, and then he moved to California when he was a teenager. But
I did know that about your dad. I think that's the first place I connected with him, because he probably had a Phillies hat on, or I did.
Oh, we were repping the Philly pride this year. No shame in that.
Yeah,
this year I was like, we actually went to one of the playoff games. It was my first pro football game.
Oh my
And
goodness.
It was a really fun experience. We had my brother, my dad, and my stepmom. My little sister didn't get to go because she was only like 4.
If you'd like to fire this up,
yeah, thanks.
please do. Yeah, this is a Philly blunt. It's grown here locally in Humboldt County. Some Blue Dream and some s'mores herb, which was like a ice cream cake cross. So it's Blue Dream with some ice cream cake.
Well, that's a unique combination.
Yeah,
I like it.
Yeah, it's tasty. We do some blends. Sometimes we'll just put one strains in there. Other times we mix it up, because I've always loved salad. You know, that's the whole idea of crossing genetics as well. Really, you're mixing the terps into something that you like better, right?
That's true.
It's like, I like this strain, I like that strain. If I mix them together, I get this. So I've always loved the salad, and always appreciated the differences that the genetics offer. And I think that's the culture. People that love the plant really do love the genetics, and like that's like the whole thing. It's like the effects of cannabis are why people smoke it, and some of the flavors and whatnot are what bring them back, and the smells and the nostalgia from these effects they're having. I think, to me, that's most of why people smoke and what brings them back. And we've created a tool for the Head Stash Bowl. We have a little app that you can use to rate the herb and rosin. So we feel it's like, the best way to do that.
That's smart. Yeah, this is great.
Yeah, enjoy it as much as you want.
Super tasty.
That's how we do it in Philly. You just smoke the blunt till you're ready to pass. It's all good. I bet when I go back east, though, everyone's like, pass me that thing. I'm like, chill out.
Chill.
I remember when I first moved out to Humboldt, and then friends came out here. I just want to tell a quick story, but Humboldt Beat was the name of the story, because they were looking in the ashtray. They're just like, what? Why is there all this like green weed on the ashtray? And people were grabbing into the ashtray, kind of fighting over the half burnt bowls in the weed. And we're like, oh, that's Humboldt Beat. Once you burned all the terps off, we ash it out and get rid of it.
Yeah.
Humboldt Beat.
I've had some of those experiences too, just with people who don't live in town. Like back in like my high school days, friends would come from out of town and like just even look at like what I would ash from my bong, and they're like, wait, you're not like snapping it down every time? I'm like, ma'am, no. Never had to deal with that.
Oh, there we go. There's a little ashtray box for us. Yeah, thanks for coming in today and chatting and sharing a blunt. And I don't know if you have any insight about what you see, what kind of trends might be happening, in genetics. Like I was kind of joking in some way about this spray pack stuff, but it's out there. So if people out there that don't know what spray packs are, and there's a lot of people have no idea what that is, but there's stuff you can spray on weed or sprinkle on weed, and it's like terps, so it's like some of it's artificial stuff, some of it's naturally derived, whatever it is, but they're spraying shit on the weed. And who knows what the hell's getting sprayed on there, really.
Well, the really convincing spray packs, too, are like the ones where it's actually cannabis-derived terpenes.
Yes.
And then there are people who just use straight, botanical derived terpenes as well, and so you're gonna have something that has this crazy floral notes to it.
For sure.
And then they're just also the real nasty, just artificial ones. That I had some guy that actually seemed really smart, and I mean, granted, this was at Champ's trade show, so I should have been using my better judgment, but he was telling me all of this like interesting stuff about his extract process, and I was like, okay, I'm starting to dig this. And then he busts out like a brand new little pen, and he's like, do you want this? Like, try it. And I'm like, okay, I guess I kind of do want the pen. I'm gonna try it.
Right.
Tasted it, and I was like, so they're like, so what part do you put the artificially derived terpenes in there? And he's like, oh no, that's 100% real. That's all from like pheno-hunting, and like this is a BX 30 something. And I was just like, oh God, like how did I miss the signs? I was like, this guy is so full of it right now. I like call someone else over. I'm like, hey, try this. What do you think this tastes like? And they're like, whoa, like what did you put in this weed, dude? He's like, again. He's like, no, that's not. I'm like, I mean, come on, like who out of anyone to go up to, like who do you think you're talking to right now, to be honest?
I think some of the other
that
stuff,
was one of the few times I've been duped, but
right. Well, for a second. You weren't duped, just for a second.
Yeah, I was duped,
You're duped
into
enough
trying
to even try
it,
right? But some of the stuff they're spraying on here is like they're spraying the THCA stuff. They're buying this bulk THCA in China or in Canada or whatever, and they're mixing that with some slurry of terp whatever, and then spraying this on really good weed to begin with. So, and what if you type in spray packs into YouTube, you'll see the same guy that comes up, and he's talking about how his customers like spray packs in New York. They like the sprays more than regular weed, and they're calling regular weed like OG weed. So they're calling like OG is like regular weed, which is weed that hasn't been sprayed with stuff. And so it's kind of crazy that many people actually do prefer this. It's true. And so people are smoking gnarly stuff. In fact, in New York, we took in about 27, like 30 flower samples, and 4 of the flower samples popped for some pesticide or something. Pesticides, and maybe one was heavy metals, which is like a little bit higher of a percentage and stuff. And like, so I asked the guys at the lab if they knew what spray packs were, right? And these guys have a lab, in New York and stuff, and they're like, what are spray packs? And just like you said a minute ago, we're not testing weed for a bunch of stuff that might be in there that might not be good for you. And this is where I'm coming at with this spray pack stuff. Like, we're not testing for a bunch of stuff. When you burn some of this stuff that people are spraying on there, like black smoke comes off of it.
Yeah.
100%. There's no way it's good for you.
Yeah.
So what's up with the spray packs,
And that's where I just feel like it defeats the purpose, like, altogether. And I mean, I could just see, like, from an uneducated, like, consumer perspective, how that could catch your interest.
Definitely.
Like, oh, this tastes good. This tastes like
Blueberry
something
Muffins,
I'm used to.
for example.
It tastes like food or candy or, something I'm very used to ingesting, and maybe they don't have, like, the acquired palate that actually craves the raw just flavors of cannabis, because to me, I'm like, I don't even enjoy that, but okay.
Right.
But it's also just, like, it comes down to, as you said, it's not good for you, and like there's no reason other than just the like gratification of it maybe tasting familiar, like some candy you've tried before. Definitely. To change the flavor of it. Like I truly can't like wrap my head around that actually being like a potential serious problem in the industry, and it makes me sad to even think that it's like starting to be so common. And I have heard that a lot. I do seem to hear it a lot more in New York particularly, and I always wondered if that was just because like they were having some trouble kind of catching up and getting their product up to quality expectation.
Right.
Or
is
just
it
where they were sourcing it from. Were
Right.
they like getting a bunch of stuff from Oklahoma and running it over there, and
Right.
it needed to get spruced up a little bit.
Or they just
And so
leaving
that was
on
my
those
general
trends.
assumption. But the problem is that, yeah, then that turns into trend leading, and people start to seek and enjoy that honestly inferior product. And it's like, next thing you know, good quality bud is getting sprayed and
to become
ruined.
better, more enjoyable and easier to sell to people because there's a market for this thing. You know, it's wild that people would spray crap on herb, really. And trends like, you know, Philly blunts is a trend. You know, people started smoking Philly blunts, and it wasn't on the market, and nobody's like, people were selling blunts, but they weren't really pushing it. It was like, well, that's a good trend. We're actually removing the tobacco. We have an all hemp blunt wrap there, which is just made from weed leaves, because leaves don't have THC, right? So it's hemp. And anyway, yeah, so if you're spraying stuff on your weed out there, just stop it. You know, there's better things you could do with your time. You could learn to grow better weed.
Yeah.
That's easier.
That's the first step, right?
Right on.
But yeah, to the consumers as well, don't catch yourself thinking that an artificially flavored product is somehow better than something that smells pretty damn good on its own.
Even some of the competitors that entered their herb into the competition, I know a guy personally, and he claimed, you know, his stuff failed. It had arsenic in it, right? Because that's the labs test him for that. Well, that stuff's a heavy metal, and it comes from, in this case, potentially from, he's using like crab mulch and stuff from the ocean. They're up in Maine and stuff, and they're using like all this organic, natural ingredients. And maybe it's just, it comes, you know, those things eat in the ocean. You know, there's a lot of different ways that a lot of this stuff can trickle in. But if you're not testing the herb, you never know.
Right.
He was super thankful and was like, wow, that could have saved me thousands of dollars, because I got to watch what I'm putting in there. I'm going to go look at what I put in there. So we don't do this testing so people fail. We do it so that we're giving judges clean product, and it's an educational opportunity. And that's what we're talking about, is like knowing what you're smoking is important, especially these days. People are sprinkling things that you don't even know what the frick it is here and there and everywhere, because there's tiny little particles of drugs and other toxins present in the world right now that can really trip you out. Right. So, you know, make sure you source your stuff and support tested herb. Support the local dispensaries or whatever they call them in your state.
Or just don't buy your weed from weirdos.
Or grow your own, or get it from your friends, and don't buy it from weirdos. Yeah, agreed. Well, yeah, I appreciate you coming in today. It was a great conversation, and no better way to end it than on this blunt, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. This was great.
Yeah, I appreciate
Definitely
it.
looking forward to New York, and I think I'm doing rosin, right? I have a lot of rosin to go smoke. I need to clean my Puffco.
There you go. Nice. Right on. Yeah, we got some, I think there was 9 samples of rosin that we brought in that passed. So you'll be getting a judging kit with that. And we got an app that you can use to
I have like just enough
with.
time to just do like 1 sample a day.
There you go. 1 a day is a good way to do it.
Get the effects factor down.
I like the 1 a day way to do it. Yeah, for the Cannabis, for the Head Stash Bowl this year in California, we're working with Kevin, and we're bringing back the Golden Tarp Award.
Nice.
So we're going to work together to do that, and
that's exciting.
We've opened it up for judges and competitors, but we're doing greenhouse flower, we're doing in-house flower, we're going to do live resin, and we're going to do infused foods and drinks. Man, I forgot exactly what I was going to say about that because I got off on the tangent, but
the blunt's hitting.
The blunt works, you know. And so, yeah, the effects are why people use the plant. So cheers to the effects of the ganja weed.
Hell yeah. I think that's a pretty solid note to leave off on there.
For sure. So if you don't know Humboldt Seed Company, give them a follow. go on their Instagram, go to the website. Do you have any upcoming events or anything that you want to point out, or somewhere I should be pointing people?
Yeah, check our website, our YouTube. We often will upload new content, and
Nice.
then, you know, we try to do as many events as we can. So we'll see you out there at some point, I'm sure.
That's it. Check out the socials, go to their website, give them a follow. And yeah, thanks for joining me today, Halle.
Yeah.
It was great to see you.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
All right. This was another Into the Cannabis, and we're going to bring you back. Here you go. Have a great day. Thanks for joining us. Give us a follow if you like what you're seeing. Peace.